I'll tell you how I ended up here, which is going to be a little bit curious for some of you anyways. I'm one of Bobby and Ethel Kennedy's kids, and when I was in high school and college, my oldest brother, Joe Kennedy, he started a not-for-profit oil company. I just lost. So the way that worked is you would buy oil, send it to a refinery, sell off gasoline, Vaseline, jet fuel, and 30 other byproducts. Take the profit on all of that, pay for the home heating oil that was left over, and then distribute that to, well, people who needed it in Massachusetts to heat their homes during the cold winter. So we figured out a perpetual self-sustaining way to help other people. And I thought, man, I want to do what Joe's done. He's figured out a way to bend the rules of the economy so it works for everybody, not just the super rich. Reagan was president of the United States at the time, and he'd done something no American president ever done. He had created homelessness. He had created hunger. There had been homelessness and hunger in the United States since it was founded, but never to the degree that occurred after the Reagan administration. He released so many people from federally funded facilities with no infrastructure in place to take care of them when they were dismissed. And you look at the history of food banking in the United States, almost every food bank in America has as its origin something that occurred during the Reagan administration. I got swept up into that. I wanted to go in the fight against hunger. I didn't know how to feed anybody. I was just in college at the time, so I got a job at a big grain processor. In 1986, I moved from Boston, Massachusetts to Decatur, Illinois. And you didn't see that coming. and I lived in employee housing down in Decatur, and then they moved me all over Illinois, and I worked with grain elevators buying corn and soybeans from farmers, and then bigger crushing operation in Decatur, alcohol plant, Peoria. I traded barge freight in St. Louis, and then ended up at the Board of Trade and the Mercantile Exchange. And then, that was unbelievable. There was this other guy with me in the training program, and he was older and not nearly as good looking. And it was the 80s, so it was like raw capitalism down there. And he walks in the door the first day at the Board of Trade, and somebody looks up and says, "Oh my God, Uncle Fester just walked in." And then they call him Fester. They never learned the guy's name. It's so rude. Stupid too, because it turned out that Fester was an undercover FBI agent. And he indicted everybody who called him Fester. And then they all went to jail. And I was like 23 years old. I just moved to Chicago. I was like, oh my God. This is a tough town. Everybody's wearing a wire. So I ended up running the merchandise mart. I moved over to the mart and stayed there about 25 years. And that's the world's largest building when it was built. It had about 600 showrooms in it. And next door, we had another 400 showrooms. We'd run events to bring people to the building. We were really in the trade show business, so we got in the trade show business. And I ran 90 trade shows a year all over North America, some in Europe, in about 30 vertical markets. Everything from floor covering to ceiling system, lighting, this sort of furniture, home furniture, bridal gowns, men's suits, all sorts of stuff. And I learned how the political economy works, how politics and government interact with a growing or shrinking economy, what decisions a government can make to make that economy grow, or decisions they don't make that negatively impacts it. And I ended up bringing more companies to Illinois to open an office here for the first time in the mart location than any other place in the state. I still volunteered with the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I became chairman of it, and we doubled the size of the operation. Introduced the first fresh fruit and vegetable program, and then realized that the 700 soup kitchens and pantries that we were distributing through were under enormous pressure. They were designed to feed people who'd been laid off in the days of Jimmy Carter and Reagan administration when we had raised interest rates to 22% and people lost their jobs. We put 10 million people out of work in order to save the economy. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Like those guys in Vietnam say, sometimes you got to destroy a village in order to save it. We took the same view of our own country. Sometimes you got to destroy the economy in order to save it. These soup kitchens and pantries took care of those people. But now they've been doing it not for weeks and months, but for months and years and decades, the same people. And they're struggling. About 5-6 years ago, my wife Sheila and I started Top Box Foods, which is a not-for-profit anti-hunger program. It operates like Citizens. It's self-sustaining. people buy the food from us. Now they get a super discount. It's like 40, 50% off of area grocery store, and it's fresh fruits and vegetables, much higher quality than they'd see. And we bring it right into their community. We operate through about 120 different organizations all over northern Illinois. We're out in Rockford now, and all over Lake County and Cook County. A little operation in the Gulf Coast, and one out in New England as well. And those are the people that this economy has left behind. Such a cool place when I moved to Chicago in 1987. It's the coolest city in America. Everybody wanted to be here. You know, the country was worried because we were headed demographically to this place where we would be majority minority in our major cities, and people don't like change, and that kind of change scared the hell out of them. And then Chicago elects Harold Washington, and it's okay. It's better than okay. It's great because he celebrates not only the things that bring us together, but the things that make us unique. He has stuff like the Gospel Fest in the downtown core. That's mind-blowing to other mayors. You're like, how can you celebrate one culture? It's like, I'm going to celebrate every culture. St. Patrick's Day and Columbus Day, we're going to preserve our neighborhoods and their unique culture, and it's going to be a great tourism town, and people are going to want to live here. And in fact, we cream the crop of everybody. Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, all the young people move to Illinois because they want to be part of that cool environment. That's not the city we have today. The city we have today is not growing, it's not super cool, it's not the envy of the country, it's shrinking. It's shrinking because there's a relentless attack on people of color. And then the state of Illinois is shrinking. That's unbelievable too. It shrunk and average household income went up. That's statistically nearly impossible, to have a shrinking economy and rising household income. It went up not because all of us got more money, not because our paychecks went up, but because of the relentless attack on the 800 social service agencies that make up the social safety net in our state. Anybody with a sick child, a disabled brother or sister, elderly parents, couldn't count on the state to fund the agencies that were helping them out, so they knew they had to leave, and they did. And when we got the poor to leave the state of Illinois, it made the rest of us look statistically wealthier. Average household income jumps 11% in the last 2 years. That's sick. What we're doing is immoral, and it needs to end. I told these guys I was at this church, and it was, the service was held in a public building. The pastor had somehow gotten the rights to a big public building, a building that we all own. The pastor had apparently gotten rights to the parking structure, which is also owned by the state of Illinois as well. And I got dropped off at the wrong door, and they were taking cash for parking in the public parking lot that was going to the pastor in that operation. And I got in there, and they had this woman who showed up, like 2,000 people in this thing. And this woman in the back, she didn't wear shoes. The pastor says, "Woman, why aren't you wearing shoes?" She's like, "What?" Pastor goes back to the back of the room and grabs her and brings her up in front of everybody. It's like 2,000 people. And he says to her, "Why don't you have shoes?" She doesn't know how to answer, and she collapses in humiliation, lies on the floor. And then he says to her in sort of a grandiose style, the Lord said, "I will stand with you. I will be by your side. I won't stop the stoning, but I'll stand by your side." I think to myself, I don't remember reading that part about not stopping the stoning. Where was that line? And I'm sitting there thinking about it, and just watching this woman on the ground. I don't know what to react, and I think, why is he saying this? And I realize that he's part of the system, that he's gotten himself into a public space. And he's got control of it because he's politically connected. And he's part of a system, and he can't stop the stoning because he's part of it. He can't speak up. I'm running for governor because I want to stand with the poor. I'm running for governor because I'm going to stop the stoning in this state. Thank you all very much.